Hello and welcome to your first of many videos for Comp 3350 Software Engineering. So I will be your video host. My name is Lauren Ambo. I'm an instructor in the department. I've been a sessional. I've been a graduate student. I've been an undergraduate student. I took this course in my undergraduate degree, but while some things have changed, lots is the same. And so I am very excited to kind of join you and guide you through this this journey of software engineering, let's say. This course is run in a flipped classroom format. So first you're going to watch these videos each week, and then you'll go to class. You'll have some active work time. You'll do some team building. You'll do some learning, some learning of important lessons in the class. So this is kind of your reminder that Software Engineering 1 really isn't just about coding, right? We're talking about building maintainable, high quality software. And this is going to be, for many of you, your first introduction to it. Perhaps some of you have done some internships or some work, but for many of you, this will be the first. Now, the official course goals for this course, we're building a real project on a real team, right? We're going to try and solve a real problem, or, relatively. We're going to learn about how professional developers and teams sort of plan and design and test their software, and how they iterate over their software. They start by building something small and how they sort of enhance it and build on it to turn it into sort of some of the behemoths that we see today, to really complex pieces of software. Um, Now, these are the official course goals, but I'm here to tell you that those aren't actually the only course goals. There are some sort of subtext course goals that people often learn when they take this course. And I think it's sort of important that we highlight those. So the first is that we're actually going to learn how to work with others. Even if you've done group projects before, I find that this project sort of brings out a very different side in people. We're going to have teamwork. We're going to have conflicts. We're going to have to talk about accountability and what we're going to do when things go wrong. We're also going to learn a lot about how to manage ourselves, right? We don't, maybe at this point, we don't know our work styles. Maybe we do. Maybe we're good with deadlines or not so good with deadlines. Maybe we're really sensitive to feedback or not, right? So we're going to learn a little bit more about ourselves and how we work in a team development environment, and sort of how we can grow and use this when we go forward into the workforce, when we go forward into our interviews, and be able to talk about those experiences. And of course, yes, we are going to learn how to build something real, right? And we're going to grow from that experience, not just technically, but socially, interpersonally. This course is mentally, socially, and emotionally, maybe even spiritually, very taxing. It's an opportunity to grow and learn a lot, personally and professionally. All right, so this is a little bit of a different course, and I've been teaching this course for a number of years now, and I can sort of talk a little bit about what's different about this course compared to others. So one of the main tenets of what we learn when we go out into the workforce, when we do an internship, when we do a co-op term, whatever it might be, is learning when to ask for help and when to just try to persevere on our own. A lot of this course that of the fundamentals that we're going to learn through these videos is very separate from what you're actually going to be doing in your project. Because what you're doing in your project is going to be lots of debugging and lots of fighting with code and software and versions and trying to get things connected and working properly. And your job, my job, your instructor's job, it's not going to be to do the work for you. We're not going to debug your computer for you. We're not going to, write code for you or help you work through your code really very much either. So you sort of have to learn how to navigate what are the right questions to ask, when should we be asking them, which is very different from other courses. Other things that are different are going to be this idea of navigating conflict and standing up for yourself. This is a really, really tricky one, right? We don't want to upset our friends or our peers. We're nervous about our peers and what they're going to think of us. But this is, a part of life. And when we get on a team and our teammates want to do something different from what we want to do, we do have to sort of learn how to navigate that. And that's not really something we see in many other courses, because often other courses that involve projects, it's not quite as much of the all-encompassing grade. It also doesn't often involve such a large-scale project, such as this one. We're going to have to figure out how to balance our teamwork and our individual responsibility. Nobody on your team is going to be the de facto leader by any means. I'm not going to assign anybody a leader. Your instructor won't. In theory, you won't either. So there's this balance between, handing work off and working as a team versus having some ownership and working on stuff yourself, as well as sort of adapting to those different work styles. Maybe some people do want to be a leader, others do want to be told what to do, and how can we work together with those kinds of people? We also need to manage deadlines, and our deadlines are not moving. So one of the key tenets of this course is that we do want to try to mimic real life when we can. So deadlines don't move, not for any kind of extensions, not for any kind of sickness. Because in the real world, if you're sick in the last, week before a deadline or the last 4 days before a deadline, the deadline doesn't move for you. You have a team. Your team's job is to help you. Your job as a team was to sort of prep and plan for unexpected events. And we're going to try to mimic that. And that's one that people often struggle a little bit with because they are used to being able to ask for extensions or move deadlines a little bit and have some wiggle room. We also are going to understand that code quality matters. And while previously, you received maybe 5 marks or 10 marks of an assignment were for programming standards, 90% of your marks are programming standards in this course. So we are going to learn that code quality matters greatly, not just functionality. And we are going to gain all this through building something real, right? It's not through these lectures. It's not through lectures in class. It's not through exercises in class. It's through this group project. And that really is sort of the main pillar of the course. So as I mentioned, the weekly flow for this course will be that you'll watch the videos before class. There may be some there may be some readings as well, some required readings, some optional ones. Those are less important to do before class, like for sure, before the first day of the week or anything like that. But they are going to be like the required ones are testable material. So make sure that you do read them, and they do give a lot of context, like real world context to the topics that we're covering each week. So you can make sure that you can come to class ready to engage with your group, with your instructor, with me, whoever it may be, and the material. Of course, you need to be ready to do that. And you're going to be using GitLab every single week. So if you're new to version control, you'll have an opportunity to watch a little video I put together and do some tutorials. But again, it's going to be sort of self-taught. You're going to want to make sure you spend time on your own, but you should be engaging with GitLab. As much as possible, right? So you can see that I kind of say here that once your project really starts to get going, my recommendation is that you are checking in with your project minimum once a day, right? So a quick minimum check-in with your project is seeing the status of things, making sure you know what your next steps are to work on, making sure you're not missing anything. That would be a minimum check-in, and much more than that would be, of course, actually implementing something or spending some time working in the code. But there is sort of this expectation that you're checking in with your team continuously, right? Your project spans the whole term, so you need to be checking in with them all term. All right, so the tools that you're going to have in your toolbox for this course, well, really it will depend on the project specifications for the term that you're taking this in. But generally, it's going to be a Java-based project. It might be an Android app. It might be a desktop app. But generally, that's been sort of the theme is it is a Java project since we do sort of have a focus on Java here. And so that will be your strongest language at this moment in time. Go read the project overview document that is going to be available to you on the learning management system on Learn, and that's where you will get all this information and the language and stuff like that. And generally, it will tell you the IDE that you're expected to use. So like what the graders are going to run your code in. Make sure you use it. If it says to use VS Code, don't go doing it in like NetBeans or an IntelliJ or Eclipse because different IDEs have different ways of setting things up, and if your grader can't run it, they're not going to be able to give you marks for it. It will tell you your testing frameworks that you need as well. So like if you're using JUnit 4, JUnit 5, specific testing frameworks on top of that, specific acceptance, end-to-end testing frameworks or front-end testing frameworks. The project overview document does cover all of this. It should also cover versioning. So if there's different versions of things, like I said, JUnit 4, JUnit 5, different versions of like the Android OS that you might be working in, or different versions of the Java, like the JDK that you might be working with. Those things do matter, and it should be listed in that document. And there'll be more as well, all about the project. At a minimum, I can tell you you're using GitLab and you're using Learn, and then all those other pieces will be listed in that document. So go check it out. All right, so this project, does have sort of 4 iterations to it. That's what we're going to call these sort of deadlines, these milestone check-ins. We've got iteration 0. There's no code in iteration 0. That's just all of your project planning. Iteration 1 has all your project basics and a little bit of testing in it, and it sort of just grows from there. At the end of the term, you'll do a final project presentation. Typically, it's just a demo video, like a fun one. Sometimes they're pretty kitschy. There'll be certainly some examples posted on Learn, and you'll also put together like a website where people would like go to buy your product, something like that. In addition to sort of that kind of group work, there's also this idea of peer reviews. Peer reviews are when you have a chance to reflect on your own work and your teammates' work, and it's a really important part of the project process. It's mandatory. You can't just not fill it out. Even if you think that everybody's doing great, you still fill it out, and there'll be more on this part of the process a little bit later in the course. All right, so how are we going to get ahead? How do we get started in this course? There is going to be that Git Primer video available to you. So if you do want to go and watch it now, you always can. You can make your account. You can request access to the class group. Typically, there'll be a link for that in your syllabus or made available on Learn. And just mess around in GitLab. Make sure you get comfortable with it. Make sure you understand it. And lots of the GitLab docs that we require, we ask for them to be in Markdown. So if you don't know Markdown, now's a great time to go and learn about it, go mess around with that, do a tutorial on that, figure out how you go from a Markdown document to a PDF. Some of those sort of tools and techniques that perhaps you learned in a classroom or in an internship, or perhaps you're going to learn it right now. You're going to go and figure it out. And of course, as always, the Help Center exists for anybody who is struggling to figure those things out. But this is kind of your first test in perseverance and sitting down and figuring some stuff out by yourself. At the end of every term, when I teach it, I always ask students for something they wish they had known at the start of the term. And so there are some things that I know I told them at the beginning of the term, but apparently, nobody listens or hears me. Um, but I doubt that this will curb this situation, but I'm going to try, right? So in an effort to curb this slightly, I decided to include stuff in their own words, things that they said they wish they would have known coming into this course before they started their project, before they learned anything at all. Here we go. It truly is in their own words. Um, Here, be careful creating tech debt while thinking, oh, well, I'll fix this later. No problem. The extra time it takes to write better code is almost always worth it. You're going to spend so much time in this course rewriting, refactoring your code that you wrote at 3 a.m. otherwise, right? So if you're not careful, you're going to find yourself doing sort of, as they say, learning this lesson the hard way. This is not your normal class project. Take their word for it, I promise. This is almost always where people get caught, is that they write bad code in the beginning. They think that they can just sort of do it the day before the project's due, and it follows them for the rest of the term in horrible, nightmarish ways. Next, stop making everything so tightly coupled and plan how you want different classes to interact with each other. Okay, so these choices plagued us every iteration. And if we'd taken more time to look at the coupling, so the interactions between our classes early on, we would have saved time in the long run. So your early choices are going to follow you in this project. So spend some time up front making good choices. I always say this at the start of every single term. I give time in class when I teach this course to spend time talking about how your code classes are going to talk to each other, making diagrams. Here, students' own words. I hope that you will heed their warning and take that time to actually plan out your project. I wish I'd known that this course requires a lot of time. I will never say I told you so unless it's in jest, but I mean, this is a different course project. It does take time. You cannot sit down 3 nights before and work on it. And I know it's still going to happen for some of you, but I really hope that some of these reflections are going to help us really hear what they're saying and maybe work on our time management skills now instead of, in the last month of the course. Nail down your interfaces and architecture before writing any code, especially in the beginning. We were stepping on each other's toes like crazy, right? So like I said, you're going to have planning time in class up front. Use that planning time. Define those contracts between classes. as early as you can. We'll talk more about what that really means in the coming videos, but just to understand that this is a thing that you need to sort of be cognizant of and thinking about from day one. A piece of advice I wish I'd known would have been to document more than we already had. Document everything. You will forget things to do. You'll forget things that you've written, why decisions were made. We didn't necessarily struggle only because of this, but it might have helped. And I would have loved to see more thorough documentation of the smaller decisions that we made along the way. So when Lauren recommends documenting something, which I do throughout my videos in the classroom, I mean it. Make sure that you spend that time up front. Maybe every time you all meet, you designate someone in charge of writing minutes, and perhaps as you're writing code, you write your comments, as you know you've been told since your first course in computer science. I wish I had known how difficult it was to work in one IDE and switch your project over to a different one. So once again, if you're given version requirements, if you're given software requirements, use it. I told people, when they wrote this, we were using VS Code, and I told them, which JDK version to use, and then they ignored it. They went and they wrote in non-VS Code. I think this group was in IntelliJ. And then I said, okay, you need to make sure it runs in a clean version of VS Code before you submit it, because that's what my graders are going to be using. I told them the machine requirements, everything, and it didn't run. And the day before is not a great time to have to figure out how to make it run in a different IDE, as you will very quickly learn. Those versioning dependencies can be really tricky to hammer out. So follow those instructions nice and carefully in the beginning. As hard as this course will be, everything you learn here will be invaluable. I put this course off for too long. If I had this knowledge before my last job, it would have made things so much better. I think that this is a really important one because, as I often say at the beginning of courses that I'm teaching, or I guess I should say sections that I teach from this course, you get tortured a little bit in this course. You certainly are put through some stressful times in this course. I ask you to trust me in this course, and that can be a really tricky thing to hear from your instructor. But everything you learn here really is invaluable. You're going to learn lessons that you're actually going to take forward into the workplace. I do my best to mimic the kinds of feedback and the kinds of deadlines and realist opinions that you might hear in the workforce as best as I can. I spent time in industry before I came back to teach. So we'll see that, the things that you hear and learn will truly, honestly help you as you go forward. Okay, and with that, we're going to get started. So that's the end of our very first video together. Welcome to the course. I'm looking forward to spending more time sort of chatting and going through all this really exciting, fun material together. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.